Hi! Welcome to part 2. This time we're going to be discussing the book The Bitcoin Standard. The book The Bitcoin Standard is written by Saifedean Ammous, an assistant professor of economics in Beirut. In his book, he presents his vision for the future of Bitcoin by explaining the general economics and history of currencies in general. His thesis is you need to understand money before you can actually understand Bitcoin and its importance. To be honest, going into this book, I expected more of a technical explanation of Bitcoin, but the economical background of Bitcoin was also super interesting. In this video, I'm going to try and summarize a few of Ammous' key ideas. You should be able to preview and jump between chapters down at the bottom here. I'd like to start with a key concept from the book called the stock-to-flow ratio. A lot of Ammous' assumptions are based on this metric. In short, the stock-to-flow ratio is a very important indicator to assess resources or currencies. It basically relates the current stock of a good, so how much is on the market right now, versus the flow of the good, which means how fast can I produce more of this good. A high stock-to-flow ratio is desirable. This means that the current stock of a good is very high, and producing more of the good is very hard. This means the good or currency is scarce, and scarcity leads to very stable prices in the long term. Currencies with a high stock-to-flow ratio are called hard money, in contrast to easy money. Sound money is money that is stable in value, and Ammous states that a sound monetary system is the basis of every civilization. An unsound monetary system leads to a high time preference in people because of the volatility of the currency. This basically means that people are prone to instant gratification and don't really plan for the future. The gold standard was a long period that started around 1870, where various countries tethered the value of their national currency to the price of gold. The value of their own currency was backed by the actual amount of gold the government held in reserve. Gold is very stable in value due to its rarity and resulting low rate of supply, which is why the whole system was pretty smart. It allowed a then unprecedented period of international exchange and prosperity, in part because of the super simple conversion of currency across borders. The official gold standard ended in 1914 with World War I. Money nowadays is what crypto people call fiat currency, and basically means governmentally decreed money. Most currencies aren't backed by any real commodity, which means that the value of money can be used as a political instrument and decided at will by governments. Oftentimes, when politicians have to decide between an unpopular tax or a very popular expenditure, they take the route of inflation, devaluing the currency, but enabling them to spend the necessary money on the popular expenditure. At the same time, national debt is astronomically high, but doesn't really matter because the government owes themselves that money. In short, governments sitting at the printing presses of national currencies have full control over the monetary system, and money effectively has no real value. There's thousands of videos explaining how Bitcoin works, and they probably explain this better than I ever could. However, this is in short how the book explains the way Bitcoin works. Bitcoin provides a secure and decentralized system for digital cash. The Bitcoin network and blockchain runs simultaneously on a bunch of computers worldwide who constantly update this distributed ledger and validate transactions. Miners mathematically verify the authenticity of a transaction using a concept called proof of work. The blockchain is basically a continuous, coherent stream of verified transactions. If a bundle of transactions, a block, is successfully verified by a miner, it is then added to the chain. The Bitcoin system removes the need for trust during financial transactions and instead relies on transparency, verification, and math. I'm planning on going into more detail on the technicalities behind Bitcoin in the next part, so I hope you don't feel overwhelmed by the super short summary. The supply of Bitcoin is strictly limited, and its scarcity is guaranteed by its inherent technical nature. Similar to gold, Bitcoin has a very high stock-to-flow ratio, making its price very stable over time, at least in theory. One of Bitcoin's biggest problems is its scalability. This is because the capacity of blocks is limited to 1 megabyte in size to guarantee the portability of each blockchain instance, which in turn limits the maximum number of transactions daily at around 500,000. This number has almost already been reached nowadays. The technical nature of Bitcoin's system makes it unrealistic that all future transactions will be processed directly on Bitcoin's blockchain, especially when more and more users join the network. Instead, many look to the future of Bitcoin, with most transactions taking place off-chain in some sort of Bitcoin-backed currency. Bitcoin is already nowadays turning into more of a settlement network, which basically means that in the scenario of a Bitcoin standard, banks will issue their own digital Bitcoin-backed currency and only use the blockchain to settle accounts between banks. Ammous is a Bitcoin hardliner, and in some parts of the book he goes off on rants about modern art and other stuff, which sort of undermined the overall credibility of the book. Nevertheless, the book seemed very well researched and was super interesting. The opinion the book pushes is that Bitcoin isn't just a digital currency, but more of an economical revolution that challenges a lot of preconceptions we nowadays have about money and exchanging money. The already massive current market cap of Bitcoin speaks to the relevance of this topic, and I feel like you can't just shrug off Bitcoin anymore as an obscure hobby for investing. Yo, thanks for staying until the end. In the next part, I'll discuss Bitcoin and its technology in more detail. See ya!